Now let's begin. Gabriel Golden stood in the automotive shop's office, wiping grease from his hands with a red rag. 34 years old, broad-shouldered from years of working under car hoods, he'd built Golden Auto Repair from nothing into something the neighborhood trusted. His calloused hands could diagnose an engine problem by sound alone, and his reputation for honest work kept customers coming back. "Dad," Charlotte's voice echoed through his memory from that morning. His 8-year-old daughter had wrapped her arms around his waist before school, her backpack with the purple butterflies bouncing against her shoulders. "Love you to the moon. And back again, sweetheart," he'd replied, kissing the top of her blonde head. Gabriel checked his watch, 2:47 p.m. Charlotte would be in Mrs. Henderson's class right now, probably raising her hand to answer every question like she always did. His girl was smart, got that from him, though Patricia liked to claim credit. His wife of 10 years had grown distant lately, always taking her father's side in every disagreement, no matter how small. Lawrence Watkins. Gabriel's jaw tightened thinking about his father-in-law. 62 years old, retired high school principal, pillar of the community. Everyone loved Lawrence. Coached Little League for 20 years, organized church fundraisers, knew everyone's name. Gabriel had never fully trusted him, something in those pale blue eyes that didn't match the warm smile. "Hey, Gabe." Sean Haney walked into the office, his own mechanic's coveralls streaked with oil. They'd been best friends since high school, and Gabriel had hired him 5 years ago when Sean's previous shop went under. "That Chevy's ready. Needed a new alternator like you said." "Thanks, man." Gabriel grabbed his keys. "I'm gonna run out for parts. Be back in an hour." The drive to the auto parts store took him past Lawrence's house on Elmwood Drive. Gabriel wasn't planning to stop, but something caught his eye, a purple backpack with butterflies sitting on the porch. His heart dropped into his stomach. Charlotte's backpack. Gabriel pulled over 2 houses down, his mind racing. School didn't end until 3:15. Why would Charlotte's backpack be at her grandfather's house? Patricia had taken the day off work, mentioned something about errands, but she'd said nothing about picking Charlotte up early. He killed the engine and sat there, staring at that backpack. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. Gabriel pulled out his phone and called Patricia. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. Gabriel got out of his truck and walked toward Lawrence's house, a modest 2-story colonial with the lawn perfectly manicured. The neighborhood was quiet, most people at work. He'd been here 100 times for family dinners, holidays, barbecues. Lawrence always played the doting grandfather, sneaking Charlotte extra cookies, letting her stay up late when she visited. As Gabriel approached the porch, he heard it, a child crying. Muffled, coming from inside. His blood turned to ice. "No, please. I don't want to." Charlotte's voice. Gabriel moved to the living room window, keeping low. The curtains were partially drawn. He peered through the gap, and what he saw would be burned into his brain forever. Lawrence had Charlotte on the couch. Her school uniform was disheveled, her face red and tear-streaked. The old man's hands were on her shoulders, holding her down as she tried to twist away. He was saying something Gabriel couldn't hear through the glass, but his granddaughter's terrified expression told him everything. Gabriel didn't think, didn't plan, didn't consider consequences. His body moved on pure protective instinct, the same instinct that had made him dive into a frozen lake 5 years ago when Charlotte fell through the ice, the same instinct that had him checking her room 3 times every night when she was a baby to make sure she was breathing. He ran to the front door and tested the handle. Locked. Gabriel took 3 steps back and launched his full 200 pounds at it. The doorframe splintered with a crack that echoed down the street. The door flew open, banging against the wall. "Daddy!" Charlotte screamed. Lawrence jerked back, shock and then calculation flashing across his face. "Gabriel, this isn't." Gabriel crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed Lawrence by his polo shirt, hauling him off the couch and slamming him against the wall hard enough to crack the drywall. Up close, he could see the guilt in those pale eyes, the fear replacing the mask of respectability. "You sick son of a bitch," Gabriel snarled, his fist cocked back. "Dad, no." Charlotte scrambled off the couch and grabbed his arm. "Please don't leave me." Gabriel looked down at his daughter, saw the terror in her eyes, not of him, but of being alone with that monster for even one more second. He released Lawrence, letting him slide down the wall, and immediately scooped Charlotte into his arms. She wrapped around him like a monkey, sobbing into his shoulder. "I've got you, baby girl," Gabriel whispered, his voice breaking. "You're safe now. I promise you're safe." Lawrence straightened up, already composing himself, that principal's authority creeping back into his posture. "Now, Gabriel, let's all calm down and discuss this rationally. Shut your mouth." Gabriel's voice was deadly quiet. "Don't you say another goddamn word." He pulled out his phone with his free hand, Charlotte still clinging to him, and dialed 911. "I need police at 447 Elmwood Drive. I just stopped my father-in-law from assaulting my 8-year-old daughter." Lawrence's face went white. "You're making a terrible mistake. This is a misunderstanding. I said shut up." Gabriel kept his eyes on Lawrence while the dispatcher asked questions. He answered mechanically, giving details, keeping his voice steady even though every fiber of his being wanted to beat Lawrence unconscious. Charlotte whispered against his neck. He said if I told anyone, you and Mommy would hate me. He said it was our special secret." Gabriel's vision tunneled. His free hand clenched into a fist so tight his knuckles cracked. "How long, sweetheart? How long has this been happening?" "Since summer, when I started staying over on Saturdays." 6 months. That bastard had been hurting his little girl for 6 months. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Gabriel carried Charlotte to the far side of the room, keeping himself between her and Lawrence. He noticed details now that rage had given way to cold focus. How Charlotte flinched when Lawrence shifted position, how she wouldn't look at him, how her little hands trembled where they gripped Gabriel's shirt. "The police will straighten this out," Lawrence said, his voice taking on that smooth, reasonable tone he'd perfected over decades as an educator. "I'm a respected member of this community, Gabriel. I've lived here 40 years. Everyone knows me. Who do you think they'll believe? A man with my reputation, or someone making wild accusations?" Gabriel met his eyes. "They'll believe my daughter. And when I'm done with you, you'll wish you'd never been born." 2 police cruisers pulled up outside, doors slamming. Gabriel heard boots on the porch, officers entering through the broken door. He'd never been so grateful to see cops in his life. But as Officer Marty Roberts, someone Gabriel knew from the neighborhood, took in the scene, Lawrence's face transformed. The monster disappeared behind a mask of confused concern. "Thank God you're here, officers," Lawrence said, his voice shaking perfectly. "My son-in-law broke into my house and attacked me. I don't know what's gotten into him." And that's when Gabriel realized this was just the beginning. Lawrence Watkins wasn't going down without a fight, and he'd spent a lifetime building armor out of reputation and respectability. But Gabriel had something stronger, a father's love, and now, a father's rage. He would make Lawrence pay, not just legally, but in every way that mattered. He'd tear down that perfect reputation brick by brick. He'd expose every secret, every lie, every dark corner of Lawrence Watkins' soul. This was war. The police station's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Gabriel sat in the interview room, Charlotte on his lap. She'd refused to let go of him, and the female officer, a kind-faced woman named Jenkins, had allowed it. They'd been separated from Lawrence immediately, taken in different cars, and Gabriel had watched with grim satisfaction as they put the old man in handcuffs. But Lawrence's words kept echoing. "Who do you think they'll believe?" Marty Roberts sat across from Gabriel, his notepad open. They'd played basketball together in high school, had beers occasionally at the local bar. Now Marty's expression was carefully neutral, professional. "Gabe, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Everything you saw, everything you heard." Gabriel went through it methodically, starting with spotting the backpack, describing what he'd witnessed through the window, the confrontation. Charlotte stayed quiet, her face buried in his chest, but her breathing hitched at certain parts of his story. "Charlotte," Officer Jenkins said gently, kneeling beside them. "Sweetheart, I know this is hard, but I need you to tell me what happened today. Can you do that?" Charlotte lifted her head slightly and nodded. In a small voice, she began describing what Gabriel's arrival had interrupted. Lawrence touching her, telling her it was their game, threatening that Mommy wouldn't love her anymore if she told. Gabriel felt sick. His hands shook as he stroked Charlotte's hair, whispering reassurances. "Has this happened before today?" Jenkins asked. Charlotte nodded again. "Every Saturday when I sleep over. He comes to my room at night. Says we're practicing for when I grow up." Robert's jaw clenched. Even his professional mask cracked for a moment, disgust flashing in his eyes. Okay, Charlotte. You're very brave for telling us. We're going to take you to the hospital now, just so a doctor can make sure you're all right. Is that okay? Only if Daddy comes, Charlotte said firmly. Of course, Jenkins assured her. Dad comes with you the whole way. As they stood to leave, Marty pulled Gabriel aside. Listen, man, he said quietly. I believe you. I believe Charlotte. But I gotta tell you, Lawrence Watkins has a lot of friends in this town. The DA, the mayor, half the city council. This is going to get messy. I don't care how messy it gets. I know. Just be smart. Document everything. Get a good lawyer. Don't do anything stupid. Marty glanced toward where Lawrence was being processed. I've known Lawrence for years. Coached my nephew in baseball. If what Charlotte says is true, it'll destroy a lot of people's image of him. That means they'll fight to protect that image. You understand what I'm saying? Gabriel understood perfectly. The system would try to protect itself, protect Lawrence, protect the comfortable lie that monsters always look like monsters. But Gabriel wasn't going to let that happen. At the hospital, Charlotte endured the examination with heartbreaking bravery. Gabriel sat outside the room, his head in his hands, while Jenkins stayed with his daughter. The nurse who emerged later had tears in her eyes. The doctor will have a full report for the police, she said quietly. But there's evidence. Physical evidence of repeated trauma. Gabriel's phone buzzed. Patricia. Finally. He answered. Gabriel. What the hell is going on? His wife's voice was shrill. I just got a call that my father's been arrested. They said you attacked him. Where are you? I'm at my sister's. We were shopping and, Gabriel, tell me what happened. Your father was molesting Charlotte. The words came out flat, cold. I caught him in the act. He's been doing it for months. Silence. Then, that's impossible. You're lying. My father would never. I saw it, Patricia. With my own eyes. And Charlotte told the police everything. Charlotte is 8 years old. She doesn't understand. Maybe she misinterpreted something. Maybe you misinterpreted. Are you serious right now? Gabriel's voice rose, and a nurse glanced over with concern. He lowered it again, each word sharp as broken glass. Your daughter was crying and begging him to stop. I saw his hands on her. The hospital found physical evidence. And you're making excuses? He's my father, Gabriel. He raised me. He's a good man. Everyone in this town knows. Everyone in this town is wrong. Gabriel stood up, pacing. Your father is a child molester. That's the reality. You can accept it and support your daughter, or you can keep living in denial. But if you choose him over Charlotte, we're done. You can't give me an ultimatum. I just did. Charlotte needs her mother right now. Are you coming to the hospital or not? Another pause. I need to talk to my father first. Hear his side. Something broke in Gabriel's chest. Not his heart. That was already shattered for Charlotte. This was something deeper, the foundation of their marriage crumbling. Don't bother coming, then, he said. Charlotte and I will manage without you. He hung up before Patricia could respond and sat back down, staring at the sterile white walls. Marty's words came back to him. This is going to get messy. The mess had already begun. Gabriel carried a sleeping Charlotte into their house at midnight. The doctors had sedated her slightly, given her something to help her rest. He'd have to arrange for a therapist, someone who specialized in childhood trauma. But tonight, she just needed to feel safe. He tucked her into her bed, the one decorated with stars and moons that they'd painted together last year. Charlotte stirred, grabbed his hand. Don't let him get me, she mumbled. Never, Gabriel promised. I'll protect you always. He stayed until her breathing evened out, then went downstairs to his computer. Sleep wasn't coming anyway. If Lawrence had friends in high places, Gabriel needed to understand what he was up against. He started searching Lawrence Watkins' name, reading old newspaper articles about his years as principal, his community service. Every glowing piece of praise made Gabriel's stomach turn. How many people had Lawrence fooled? How long had he been doing this? A darker thought occurred. If Lawrence had been doing this to Charlotte, had there been others? Gabriel's phone rang. Sean. Dude, what the hell? I heard you kicked down a door and got arrested. Not arrested. I found Lawrence hurting Charlotte. I stopped it. Sean's voice went deadly serious. Is she okay? No. But she will be. I'll make sure of it. What do you need? Whatever it is, I'm there. That's what Gabriel had always valued about Sean. No questions, just loyalty. I need you to run the shop for a while. I'm going to be dealing with this. Done. Anything else? Not yet. But Sean, this is going to get ugly. Really ugly. Then it's a good thing you don't fight clean when it comes to Charlotte. Gabriel allowed himself a grim smile. Sean was right. He'd always played by the rules, been an honest businessman, a law-abiding citizen. But rules didn't protect Charlotte. Laws didn't stop Lawrence. Maybe it was time to write his own rules. He hung up and continued researching, making notes, building a file. By dawn, he had a clearer picture of Lawrence Watkins' web of connections, the people who'd protect him, the institutions that would close ranks. The legal system would give Lawrence every advantage: bail, expensive lawyers, character witnesses. But the legal system was only one battlefield. Gabriel opened a new document and began planning. If Lawrence wanted to use reputation as a weapon, Gabriel would turn it into Lawrence's grave. If the old man thought his decades of respectability would shield him, Gabriel would burn it all down. He'd spent his life building things: engines, businesses, relationships. Now he'd learn to destroy. For Charlotte, he'd become whatever he needed to be. The arraignment happened 48 hours later. Gabriel sat in the courtroom, Charlotte with Patricia's sister Meredith Nelson, who'd immediately sided with Gabriel when she heard the truth. Meredith was a nurse, practical and clear-eyed, and she'd been horrified by her own sister's response. Lawrence walked in wearing an expensive suit. His lawyer, Marcus fucking Bradford, the most expensive defense attorney in the state, beside him. Lawrence looked subdued, playing the confused elderly man for the judge. "Your Honor," Bradford began, "my client is a 62-year-old retired educator with no criminal record. He's a pillar of this community, coached youth sports for decades, and these accusations are supported by physical evidence and a child's testimony." The prosecutor countered. District Attorney Helen Morrison was young but fierce. Gabriel had liked her immediately during their meeting yesterday. "Mr. Watkins is a danger to children. My client denies all charges. We're confident a full investigation will exonerate him." The judge, an older woman named Richards, looked skeptical. "Given the nature of the charges and the evidence presented, I'm setting bail at $500,000. Gabriel's heart sank. That was nothing. Lawrence would make bail easily. And he did. By that afternoon, Lawrence Watkins was free, walking out of the courthouse with his lawyer, facing a crowd of reporters. Some were hostile, but others, the ones from local papers who'd written glowing profiles over the years, looked confused, reluctant to believe. Lawrence gave a brief statement, his voice trembling with perfectly calculated emotion. "I love my granddaughter. These accusations are devastating and completely false. I'm confident the truth will come out, and my name will be cleared." Gabriel watched from across the street, memorizing every word, every gesture. Lawrence was good at this, he had to admit. Decades of practice playing the benevolent authority figure. But Gabriel was good at taking things apart, finding the flaws, understanding how systems worked. And Lawrence Watkins was just another system waiting to break down. He pulled out his phone and called someone from his past, someone he'd never thought he'd need again. "Yeah. Roderick? It's Gabriel Golden. Remember that favor you said you owed me?" Roderick Luna had gone to prison for hacking 8 years ago. Gabriel had testified as a character witness, had written letters, had helped Roderick's mom when she couldn't afford rent. Roderick had sworn he'd return the favor someday. "Gabe? Of course, man. What do you need?" "I need information. Everything you can find on a man named Lawrence Watkins. Bank accounts, emails, anything digital. And I need to know if he's ever hurt other kids." A pause. That's pretty illegal, man." "I know." Another pause. "Must be serious." "It's my daughter. Say no more. I'll find everything. Give me a week." Gabriel hung up and looked back at the courthouse. Lawrence was climbing into a car, probably heading home to plan his defense, confident in his fortress of respectability. Let him be confident. Let him think he'd won this round. Gabriel was just getting started. The next 2 weeks were a nightmare. Patricia filed for separation, moved in with her father to support him through this difficult time. The betrayal cut deep, but Gabriel couldn't waste energy on it. Charlotte was having nightmares every night, waking up screaming. The therapist, Dr. Allison Erickson, said it was normal, that healing would take time. Gabriel took a leave of absence from the shop, let Sean handle operations. Every morning, he took Charlotte to therapy. Every afternoon, they did something fun, movies, ice cream, the park, trying to reclaim normalcy. Every evening, after she fell asleep, he worked on his plan. Roderick delivered after 10 days. The information was illuminating. Lawrence Watkins wasn't the financial saint everyone assumed. He'd been embezzling from the Little League funds for years, small amounts, nothing that raised flags. But over 2 decades it added up to nearly $200,000. He had offshore accounts, cryptocurrency investments, all hidden from his tax returns. But the real gold was in his old computers. Dude, Roderick had said over their encrypted call, this guy kept everything. Photos, videos, going back 15 years. Different kids. I counted at least 7 victims before Charlotte. Gabriel had to step away from his computer, lean against the wall, breathe. 7 other children. 7 families who either didn't know or hadn't come forward. Lawrence had been doing this for 15 years. Can you trace the kids? Find out who they are. Already on it. Some of the image metadata has school information. I can probably identify at least 3 or 4 of them. Do it. Carefully. I need to know if they'd be willing to testify. After that call, Gabriel had opened a bottle of whiskey and poured himself a drink. He wasn't a drinking man usually, but staring at the evidence of Lawrence's decades of abuse required something to steady his hands. He now had ammunition. The question was how to use it. The trial was set for 3 months out. Bradford had filed motions to suppress evidence, to limit Charlotte's testimony, to paint Gabriel as an obsessed father with anger management issues. The local paper ran an editorial questioning whether the charges were politically motivated. Lawrence had opposed the current school board, and they were apparently friends with the DA. The court of public opinion was split. Older residents, ones who'd known Lawrence for decades, doubted the charges. Younger parents, especially mothers, believed Charlotte immediately. The town was fracturing. Gabriel received death threats. Someone spray-painted "liar" on his shop. A brick came through his window with a note. Leave Lawrence alone, or your daughter won't be safe. That was a mistake. Threatening Charlotte was the line Gabriel had drawn in blood. He filed a police report about the threats, but he also started his own investigation. The handwriting on the note was distinctive, shaky, elderly. It took Gabriel 2 days to match it to a sample from Lawrence's friend, Dale Snyder, another retiree who played poker with Lawrence every Thursday. Dale lived alone in a house on the edge of town. He was 70, arthritic, no family. He'd been a teacher at the same high school where Lawrence had been principal. They'd been friends for 40 years. Gabriel watched Dale's house for 3 days, learning his patterns. Every morning at 6, Dale walked to the convenience store for coffee and a newspaper. He was always back by 6:30. On Thursday morning, Gabriel was waiting inside when Dale returned. Who are you? How did you get in? Dale dropped his coffee, his gnarled hand reaching for his phone. Gabriel crossed the room in 2 strides and plucked the phone from Dale's fingers. We need to talk about the note you left at my house. The one threatening my daughter. Dale's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Gabriel held up his own phone, showing a photo of the note next to a sample of Dale's handwriting from a church sign-up sheet. I could go to the police with this. Threatening a child is a felony. You'd die in prison. Lawrence is innocent. You're destroying a good man's life. Lawrence is a child molester who's been abusing kids for 15 years. My daughter isn't his first victim. She won't be his last if I don't stop him. That's impossible. I've known Lawrence since. I don't care how long you've known him. Gabriel stepped closer. Dale backed against the wall. I have proof. Photos, videos, forensic evidence. Your friend is a monster. And you just threatened an 8-year-old abuse victim. How do you think that'll look? Dale's defiance crumbled. His eyes watered, his voice shook. Lawrence said, he said the girl was lying, that you were crazy, that he lied to you, like he's lied to everyone. Gabriel's voice softened slightly. I know you want to believe in your friend, but facts don't care about belief. Now, you're going to do something for me. What? You're going to stop defending Lawrence. You're going to publicly admit you sent that threat and apologize. And you're going to tell the truth, that you did it because you were wrong about Lawrence. I can't. People will think I'm a fool. You are a fool. But you can be a fool who did the right thing eventually, or a fool who's charged with threatening a child. Your choice. Dale crumpled into a chair, crying. Gabriel felt a moment of pity. The old man's worldview was shattering, but it passed quickly. Dale had threatened Charlotte. Whatever happened to him now, he'd earned. 3 days later, Dale Snyder published a letter in the local paper apologizing to Gabriel's family and withdrawing his support for Lawrence. The letter was vague about reasons, but the timing made its meaning clear. Lawrence lost his most vocal public defender. One brick removed from the fortress. Gabriel's phone rang at 2 a.m. Roderick. I found 2 of the other victims. Adults now. One's willing to talk. Girl named Emily Chun. She's 23, lives upstate. Lawrence abused her when she was 9, and he was her principal. She never reported it because her parents didn't believe her. Gabriel sat up in bed. Can you connect us? Already did. She's expecting your call tomorrow at 10. The next morning, Gabriel drove to a coffee shop in the city, an hour away from prying eyes. Emily Chun was small, nervous, with dark circles under her eyes that spoke of years of poor sleep. She'd agreed to meet in person after Gabriel explained his situation. I saw the news, Emily said, stirring her coffee without drinking it. When I saw Lawrence's face, I thought I'd hallucinate. I hadn't thought about him in years. I thought about him every day, but I tried not to, you know? I know. I'm sorry you went through that. How's your daughter? Surviving. Traumatized. Angry. Scared. Emily nodded. That'll be her for a while. Maybe forever. I'm 23 and I still lock my bedroom door every night. Still can't let anyone touch me without permission. It shapes you. Gabriel's hands clenched under the table. Every victim story was another reason Lawrence needed to pay. Would you be willing to testify? Your testimony could. No. Emily's response was immediate. I can't. I'm sorry. I know that's not what you want to hear, but I can't relive that in front of a courtroom, in front of cameras. I've built a life. It's not a great life, but it's mine. Testifying would destroy it. Gabriel wanted to argue, but saw the panic in her eyes. He couldn't pressure someone who'd already been hurt by Lawrence. I understand. But would you be willing to give a written statement? Something the prosecutor could use to show a pattern? Emily hesitated. Maybe. If it's anonymous? I can't promise anonymous. The defense would have the right to know, but we could try to keep it sealed. Keep your name out of the press. Let me think about it. I'll call you in a week. She did call, 6 days later, agreeing to a statement. It wasn't as powerful as testimony, but it was something. And Roderick found another victim willing to go on record. Marcus Webb, now 30, who'd been abused at age 11 when Lawrence coached his baseball team. The prosecutor, Helen Morrison, was thrilled but cautious. This pattern evidence is great, but Bradford will fight to keep it out. He'll argue it's prejudicial, that Lawrence isn't on trial for what he did to these other victims, only for what allegedly happened with Charlotte. Allegedly. Gabriel's voice hardened. You know what I mean. Legally, until a jury convicts. He did it. I saw it. Charlotte testified. There's physical evidence. I believe you, Gabriel. But I'm telling you what we're up against. Bradford is good at creating reasonable doubt. He'll attack Charlotte's credibility, suggest false memories, parental coaching. He'll make Lawrence seem like a harmless grandfather caught in a misunderstanding. So what do? Helen met his eyes. You let the system work. You trust the jury. And you prepare for the possibility that he walks. Gabriel left that meeting knowing he'd never rely solely on the legal system. It was too slow, too fallible, too easily manipulated by money and connections. He needed insurance. That night, he called Roderick again. The files you found, the photos, videos. Can you send them to me? Encrypted? That's evidence, man. I shouldn't even have them. I need leverage. If the trial goes wrong, I need something to release publicly. Something so damning that Lawrence can't hide. That's nuclear, Gabe. You release that stuff. Everyone sees it, including victims who didn't consent. Including Charlotte. I know. It's a last resort. But I need it. Roderick sighed. You're scaring me a little, man. Good. I'm scaring myself. The files arrived 3 days later on an encrypted drive. Gabriel watched one video, just enough to confirm it was real, then couldn't watch anymore. He locked the drive in his safe, hoping he'd never need to use it. But hoping wasn't a strategy. Planning was. The trial began on a cold Monday in March. The courthouse was packed, cameras everywhere, the media circus in full swing. Gabriel walked Charlotte past protesters, some supporting them with signs saying, "Believe children," others supporting Lawrence with signs saying, "Innocent until proven guilty," and "Free Lawrence Watkins." Bradford had done his job well, spinning this as a rush to judgment, a modern witch hunt. Lawrence sat at the defense table looking frail and confused, playing the victim perfectly. The prosecution opened strong. Helen Morrison laid out the evidence methodically, Gabriel's testimony about what he witnessed, Charlotte's statements, the hospital's findings, the pattern of other victims. Charlotte testified via closed-circuit TV, sparing her from Lawrence's physical presence. She was brave, clear, consistent. Bradford cross-examined gently, playing the kind grandfather even in cross. Charlotte, I know this is hard. And I know your daddy is very protective of you. Did daddy ever tell you what to say to the police? No, Charlotte said firmly. Did daddy ever seem angry at Grandpa Lawrence before this day? Objection, Helen interjected. Relevance. I'm establishing potential bias, Your Honor. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Charlotte. Daddy didn't like when Grandpa made me go to my room early, Charlotte admitted. Bradford seized on it. Why did your grandfather make you go to your room early? Charlotte's voice got small. Because that's when he'd do the bad things. Or is it possible your grandfather was just trying to enforce bedtime, like grandparents do, and your father misinterpreted it? Maybe built up a story in your mind. Objection. Helen was on her feet. Counsel is badgering the witness and leading. Sustained. Mr. Bradford, rephrase or move on. But the damage was done. Bradford had planted doubt. Maybe Gabriel was overprotective. Maybe he'd coached Charlotte. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. Lawrence took the stand in his own defense, a risky move that showed Bradford's confidence. Lawrence denied everything, his voice shaking with emotion as he described his love for Charlotte, his horror at these accusations, his confusion about why Gabriel would attack him. I've dedicated my life to children, Lawrence said, tears streaming down his face. Teaching them, coaching them, watching them grow. The idea that anyone would think I'd hurt a child, let alone my own granddaughter, it's killing me. Gabriel watched jurors' faces. Some looked skeptical. Others looked sympathetic. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Both sides called character witnesses, Gabriel's friends and customers praising him as a devoted father, Lawrence's colleagues and former students praising him as a mentor and role model. Marcus Webb testified about his own abuse, but Bradford tore into him, pointing out that he'd never reported it at the time, suggesting false memories implanted by media coverage of Charlotte's case. In closing arguments, Bradford painted Gabriel as an unstable man with anger issues who'd misinterpreted an innocent moment and assaulted Lawrence Watkins, then manipulated his traumatized daughter into supporting his delusion. He reminded jurors that Lawrence had no criminal record, decades of community service, testimonials from hundreds of former students. Helen countered with Charlotte's testimony, the physical evidence, the pattern of abuse. She reminded jurors that predators often hide behind respectability, that reputation isn't evidence of innocence. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Gabriel couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Charlotte stayed with Meredith during deliberations, shielded from the media storm. Sean kept the shop running but called hourly for updates. Patricia hadn't attended a single day of the trial, and Gabriel had stopped trying to reach her. On the 3rd day, the jury reached a verdict. Gabriel sat in the courtroom, his hands gripping the bench so hard his knuckles went white. The jury foreman stood, an older black woman who'd been stoic throughout the trial. On the count of child sexual abuse in the 1st degree, we find the defendant guilty. Gabriel exhaled. Charlotte was safe. Lawrence would go to prison. Justice had. However, the foreman continued. On the counts of aggravated sexual assault and predatory sexual assault against a child, we find the defendant not guilty. Gabriel's relief curdled. The mixed verdict meant Lawrence wouldn't get the maximum sentence. He might serve only 5 to 15 years. With good behavior, parole, he could be out in 7. He'd be 69, still young enough to hurt more kids. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks out. Lawrence was remanded into custody pending sentencing. At least he wouldn't make bail again. But as the bailiffs led him away, Lawrence caught Gabriel's eye and smiled. That smile said everything. I'll beat this eventually. I'll get out. I'll be back. Gabriel smiled back, and his smile said, you won't live that long. The sentencing hearing was brief. The judge gave Lawrence 8 years, less than half what he could have gotten. Given your age, your lack of prior criminal record, and the mixed verdict, I'm balancing punishment with the reality of your circumstances. 8 years. Charlotte would be 16 when he got out. Still a child. Gabriel left the courthouse knowing what he had to do. The legal system had failed. Not completely, but enough. Lawrence would serve time, but not enough time. not justice. He'd promised Charlotte that Lawrence would never hurt anyone again. He'd keep that promise. The plan came together over the following month. Gabriel visited Lawrence in county jail, something that surprised everyone, including Lawrence's lawyer. Inmates were allowed visitors, and Gabriel used a fake name on the visitor log, Marcus Webb, the name of one of Lawrence's victims. No one checked. Lawrence sat across from him behind the plexiglass, picking up the phone with a curious expression that became wary when he recognized Gabriel. "Come to gloat?" Lawrence asked. "Come to talk. We have nothing to say to each other." "I think we do. See, I know you're planning your appeal. Bradford's already filed the paperwork. You think you can get the conviction overturned, get a new trial, walk free." Lawrence said nothing, but his eyes confirmed it. "Here's what's going to happen instead," Gabriel continued. "You're going to drop the appeal. You're going to serve your full sentence. And when you get out, if you get out, you're going to leave this state and never come back." Lawrence laughed. "Why would I do that?" Gabriel pulled out his phone, tilted it so Lawrence could see the screen. He played a video, one from the encrypted drive, showing Lawrence with a child who wasn't Charlotte. The video was silent, but the image was damning. Lawrence's face went ashen. "I have hours of footage," Gabriel said quietly. "Dozens of victims. Names, dates, locations. Some of these kids are still minors. If this goes public, you won't survive a week in general population. Even in protective custody, you'd need eyes in the back of your head. Child molesters don't last long in prison, Lawrence. You know that. How did you get that? Doesn't matter. What matters is that I have it, and I'm willing to use it. Drop the appeal, serve your time quietly, and when you get out, disappear. Otherwise, I release everything. The media gets it. The police get it. Every inmate in your block gets it. And you'll spend the rest of your sentence in hell before someone shanks you in the shower." Lawrence's hands shook. "You're bluffing. Try me." They stared at each other. Gabriel saw Lawrence calculating, weighing options, recognizing that his fortress had finally crumbled. Every advantage he'd had, reputation, connections, wealth, meant nothing inside a prison where child predators were the lowest rung. "If I do this," Lawrence said slowly, "you keep that footage buried? If you do this, if you stay away from Charlotte, from every child, for the rest of your life, if you register as a sex offender and follow every rule, then yes, I keep it buried. And if I don't," Gabriel stood up, "then you find out just how creative a father's revenge can be. 8 years is a long time, Lawrence. A lot can happen. I'd be very careful about who I trust in there. Very careful about what I eat, what I drink, where I sleep. Because if I decide to make your life hell, I have 8 years to do it." He hung up the phone and walked away, leaving Lawrence staring after him. The next week, Lawrence dropped his appeal. His lawyer was baffled, tried to convince him otherwise, but Lawrence refused to explain. He pleaded guilty to the additional charges in exchange for keeping his sentence at 8 years, closing the case. Gabriel heard through Marty Roberts that Lawrence had become a model prisoner, keeping his head down, avoiding trouble. Smart man. Scared man. Good. 3 months later, Gabriel got a call from Patricia. They hadn't spoken since the trial ended. "I want to see Charlotte," she said without preamble. "No. She's my daughter. You chose Lawrence over her. You supported her abuser. You don't get to be her mother anymore. Gabriel, please. I was wrong. I know that now. I was in denial. I couldn't accept that my father. Your father is a child molester. You knew the evidence. You saw Charlotte's pain. And you chose him. That's unforgivable." Silence. "Then, I'm filing for custody. Try it. Any judge will see that you abandoned your daughter when she needed you most. You'll get supervised visits at best, and Charlotte will tell them she doesn't want to see you. Don't poison her against me. I didn't have to. You did that yourself." Gabriel hung up. He felt no satisfaction from the conversation, only exhaustion. His marriage was over. His daughter was traumatized. His trust in institutions had been shattered. But Charlotte was safe, and Lawrence was caged. That was all that mattered. Charlotte's therapy was helping. Dr. Erickson said she was remarkably resilient, that Gabriel's immediate protection had prevented even worse damage. Charlotte still had nightmares, still flinched at unexpected touches, but she was laughing again, playing again, being a kid again, as much as she could be after what Lawrence had stolen from her. One evening, tucking her into bed, Charlotte asked, "Daddy, is Grandpa Lawrence ever coming back?" Gabriel kissed her forehead. "No, sweetheart. He's never coming back. I promise. Good. Charlotte snuggled into her blankets. I love you, Daddy. You saved me. I'll always save you, Gabriel whispered. Always. He meant it. The trial was over, but Gabriel's vigil would never end. He'd set up Google alerts for Lawrence Watkins, had Roderick monitoring prison records, had built a network of contacts who'd notify him if Lawrence ever violated parole or approached a child. The encrypted drive stayed in his safe, insurance policy for life. And if Lawrence ever broke their deal, ever came near Charlotte or any other child, Gabriel would end him. Not metaphorically, not legally, literally. He'd gone too far to turn back now. He'd crossed lines he'd never thought he'd cross, done things he'd never thought he'd do. But Charlotte slept safely because of it. That was worth everything. 5 years passed. Charlotte was 13, in middle school, doing well despite her trauma. She'd published her story in a youth advocacy magazine under a pseudonym, helping other abuse survivors. She wanted to be a therapist when she grew up, to help kids like her. Gabriel had never been more proud. Patricia had gotten supervised visits after 2 years of begging, but Charlotte kept them short and formal. The damage there was permanent. Some betrayals couldn't be forgiven. Gabriel's shop had thrived. Sean had become a full partner. They'd opened a second location. Life had moved forward. Lawrence's parole hearing was coming up. He'd served 5 years of his 8-year sentence and was eligible for early release with good behavior. Gabriel attended the hearing with Charlotte, who was old enough now to speak if she wanted to. Lawrence looked older, smaller, broken. Prison had aged him 15 years. He sat before the parole board, his lawyer beside him, and gave a prepared statement about rehabilitation, therapy, remorse. Then Charlotte asked to speak. No, she said simply. He shouldn't be released. He hurt me. He hurt other kids. 5 years isn't enough. He should serve every day of his sentence. The parole board denied his release. Lawrence wouldn't be eligible again for another 2 years. Outside the hearing room, Charlotte hugged Gabriel. Thank you for fighting for me. For believing me. Always, sweetheart. Always. They drove home together, and Gabriel felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Peace. Not complete peace. He'd never fully heal from what Charlotte endured, but enough peace to breathe, to hope, to believe that justice, even imperfect justice, was possible. Lawrence Watkins would serve his full sentence. He'd register as a sex offender. He'd live the rest of his life as a pariah. And if he ever stepped out of line, Gabriel's insurance policy waited in that safe. The monster was caged. Charlotte was healing. Gabriel had won. Not cleanly, not perfectly, but decisively. And sometimes that was enough. 8 years after that terrible day on Elmwood Drive, Lawrence Watkins was released from prison. He was 70 years old, stooped, wearing an ankle monitor, and required to register at the sheriff's office within 24 hours. Gabriel knew because he'd tracked every step of the process. Lawrence moved to a different state, as required by their deal. Gabriel verified through Roderick that he'd registered properly, found a halfway house, started mandatory therapy. Lawrence was following the rules, living in fear that Gabriel would release that footage if he didn't. Good. Fear was appropriate. Charlotte was 16 now, driving, dating, preparing for college. She'd decided on psychology, wanting to specialize in childhood trauma. Her own story had become her mission. She still saw Dr. Erickson occasionally, but had largely healed, the nightmares rare now. She'd forgiven her mother partially, allowing longer visits, but the relationship would never be what it was. Some cracks didn't mend. Gabriel had started dating again, a teacher named Laurel Lowe who worked at Charlotte's school. She knew the whole story, accepted Gabriel's fierce protectiveness of his daughter, and loved them both. Life was rebuilding, but Gabriel never forgot. The encrypted drive stayed in his safe. His network of contacts stayed active. His promise to Charlotte stayed sacred. One Saturday morning, 8 years and 3 months after that terrible day, Gabriel's phone rang. Roderick, you need to see this. What? Lawrence Watkins was found dead in his apartment this morning. Heart attack, looks like natural causes, but... Gabe, there's something weird. Weird how? His computer was wiped. Professionally. And there was a note on his body, pinned to his chest. Just one word, justice. Gabriel sat down slowly. Do the police know who? No suspects. No evidence. Whoever did this was a ghost. Gabriel thought about Marcus Webb, about Emily Chun, about the other victims who'd never gotten their day in court. about parents of children Lawrence had hurt, about the vast network of people who'd wanted him dead. Natural causes sounds right to me, Gabriel said finally. Yeah, Roderick agreed. Sometimes the universe takes care of things. They hung up. Gabriel sat in his kitchen, coffee growing cold, processing the news. He hadn't killed Lawrence. He'd been at Charlotte's school play that night, surrounded by witnesses. But he'd also built a network, shared information, made sure people knew where Lawrence lived. If someone in that network had decided Lawrence's existence was intolerable, well, Gabriel couldn't say he was surprised. Or sorry. He'd promised Charlotte that Lawrence would never hurt anyone again. That promise was now permanent. When Charlotte came downstairs for breakfast, Gabriel told her. She was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. Good, she said simply. I hope it hurt. Gabriel pulled her into a hug. It's over now, sweetheart. Really over. He can't hurt anyone ever again. I know. Charlotte pulled back, wiped her eyes. Daddy? Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For fighting for me. For never giving up. I never will, Gabriel promised. You're my daughter. My world. I'd burn it all down for you. I know. That's what makes you the best dad ever. They had breakfast together, talked about her upcoming college applications, about Laurel's visit that evening, about normal life things. The shadow of Lawrence Watkins had finally lifted. That evening, Gabriel opened his safe and took out the encrypted drive. He destroyed it, drive, backups, everything. The evidence was gone. Those victims deserved privacy, deserved to not have their abuse immortalized. The monster was dead. His victims could truly heal now. Gabriel had done what the system couldn't. He'd protected his daughter, punished the predator, and made sure justice, however imperfect, was served. He'd crossed lines, broken laws, become something darker than he'd ever imagined. But Charlotte slept safely every night. She was healing, building a future. That was all that mattered. Gabriel Golden had saved his daughter. And in doing so, he'd saved himself, not from the monster in his house, but from the helplessness of watching the system fail the people he loved. He'd become judge, jury, and architect of justice. And he'd do it again without hesitation. For Charlotte. Always for Charlotte. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.